Okay, I'll be making a series of videos on quadratics in which we're going to discuss a lot of different things. We're going to discuss the sketching of a quadratic curve, the shape of a general quadratic curve, the sketching of modulus graphs, and we're going to talk about the discriminants, d square minus 4ac greater than 0, less than 0, equals to 0, real roots or not real roots. We're going to discuss all of that in a series of videos. So just wait for that patiently. In this video, we're going to talk about the basics of quadratic equations. Now, what's a general equation and what's the shape of a quadratic curve, and how would we figure out by looking at the equation if I'm going to get a maximum curve or a minimum curve. We're going to discuss all of these things over here. Okay. Now, what is a general quadratic equation? Whenever you see equations like these, such as 5x squared minus 2x plus 6 equals to 0, or x squared plus 4x equals, let's take 1 plus 1 equals to 0. Now, these equations, these are general quadratic equations. Okay, you have seen them a lot. Okay, these, whenever we sketch a quadratic equation, we going to get a parabola. The shape of a quadratic equation is known as a parabola. What do you mean by a parabola? Parabola is this kind of a U shape. It's not exactly U, okay, it's this kind of a shape. So yeah, so we can get two kinds of parabola. This one is known as the minima, and this one is known as the maxima. Okay. So let's just talk about a few points on a quadratic curve. I'll make a quadratic curve first, and then we're going to discuss those points. Right. Now this is my quadratic curve over here. In this curve, I have this point as the y-intercept. This point over here is my y-intercept. These 2 points where the curve meets the x-axis, these points are my x-intercepts. Okay. And my lowest point on the curve, the lowest point on the curve is known as the turning point. Okay, so I'll mark this for you. So this point over here is known as the turning point. Again, turning point is also that point where the graph changes its gradient. Well, the gradient is 0. So yeah, it's technically changing its gradient from negative to positive. We're going to understand that more in differentiation, not over here. Like, say, okay. Right. So this point over here is known as the turning point. Okay. And I just told you guys कि मेरे पास ये जो curve होता है that is a minima. So yeah. And this turning point is known as the minimum turning point. Minimum turning point. Why am I calling this the minimum turning point? For the increasing values of x, for increasing values of x, my value of y is continuously decreasing. आप देख रहे हैं यहाँ पे आपके पास value of y जो है वो कम होती जा रही है, ठीक है? For increasing values of x, your value of y is decreasing, ठीक है? At this turning point, you will get the lowest value of y or the least value of y, okay? क्योंकि इससे छोटी value of y तो मेरे पास आ ही नहीं सकती, सही है? So इस वजह से we call this the minimum turning point because we will need to get the least value of y on this turning point. Okay, that is why this is known as the minimum turning point. And when do we get a minimum turning point, or when do we get a minima? We get a minima when the coefficient of x squared in a quadratic equation is positive. Okay, it's positive. So yeah, for example, in equations like this, when I have 5x squared plus 6x plus 1, my coefficient of x squared is positive 5. इसका मतलब क्या है? That my curve would be a minimum. Okay, let's take another example in which I have x plus 1 whole square equals plus 5. Again, if I expand this, I don't need to expand this. I just need to understand without expanding what would be the coefficient of x square. So if you're going to expand this, just imagine कि ये जो x square है ना, ये x square ही रहेगा, ठीक है? And the coefficient of x square would be 1, would be positive 1. Since the coefficient of x square is positive 1, you are going to get a minimum. So and let's talk about the maxima. Maxima, the shape of a maxima first. So maxima would look somewhat like this. I just messed it up over here. This is better. Okay. Now this would be your y-intercept. These are your x-intercepts, and this would be your turning point. So yeah, I'm writing TP for turning point. This turning point would be a maximum turning point because we have a maxima. Okay, so I have a maxima, and the turning point that I have would be a maximum turning point. And why am I calling this the maximum turning point? Because if I increase the values of x, my value of y is continuously increasing. Okay? At this point, I'll get the maximum value of y. Okay? And इससे ऊपर तो मेरे पास value of y नहीं आ सकती ना. Okay? Over here, I'm going to get the maximum value of y. Once I cross this point, and my value of y will start to decrease. Okay? Just like this. So at this point, at the turning point, at the maximum turning point, we're going to get the maximum value of y. So yeah, that is why this is known as a maxima or the maximum turning point. And when do we get a maxima? When the coefficient of x squared is negative. Okay. We get a minima when the coefficient of x squared is positive. We get a maxima when the coefficient of x squared is negative. और ऐसी equations कौन सी होती हैं? For example, I have y equals to 5 minus 2x minus x squared. You can see that the coefficient of x squared is -1. Therefore, your graph would be a maxima. Okay, let's take another example. If I have minus x plus 1 whole square plus 3. Okay. Over here again, if you're going to expand this, just this, you're going to get positive x squared. But that positive x squared will get multiplied by -1 to make negative x squared. Okay. And if the coefficient of x squared is negative, you're going to get this curve, which is a maxima. Okay. One thing that I missed is that this parabola is symmetric about the line of symmetry. Okay, this will be the line of symmetry. Line of symmetry is the vertical line that passes through the turning point. Okay, so symmetry का मतलब है कि this side, the left hand side of the turning point, the turning point is the left side है, it would be exactly identical to the right hand side. ठीक है, बस इसको flip कर दूंगा. And if I'm going to fold this side along the line of symmetry, it would be exactly replicated to this side. यानी इस पे पूरा fold होके इस पे आ जाएगा. सही है. Similarly for this, मेरे पास ये जो मेरी line of symmetry से ना exactly identical होती है. ये वाला part is exactly identical to this part. ठीक है. That helps you in sketching the quadratic curve. Right. Over here, I have a few equations. And looking at these equations, just by looking at this, we don't have to expand them. You can just have to look at them and you're going to tell me if these are a maximum, these are going to give you a maximum curve or a minimum curve. Okay? Again, I'm going to repeat. मेरे पास coefficient of x squared जब positive होता है, I'm going to get a minima, and my coefficient of x squared is negative, I'm going to get a maxima. Okay, just pause the video for a few minutes, okay, and figure these out. Okay. Since my coefficient of x squared over here is positive, I'm going to get a minima or a minimum turning point. Okay, since my coefficient of x squared is negative over here, I'm going to get a maxima or a maximum turning point. यहाँ पे क्या है? Over here, if I'm going to expand this, I'm going to get x squared plus 2x plus 1 if I apply the first identity, okay, which is a plus b whole square equals to a squared plus 2b plus b squared. We're going to get x squared, and the coefficient of x squared will be positive 1. And if it's positive, it's going to be a minima or a minimum curve. ठीक है? अच्छा, ये दो भी हैं, इसको भी देख लेना. If I'm going to expand this, because x plus 1 whole square, सिर्फ इसकी बात कर रहे हैं. If I'm going to expand this, x plus 1 whole square, I'm going to get the coefficient of x square as positive 1. But that positive 1 is going to get multiplied by negative to get a maxima. ठीक है, तो मेरा coefficient of x square हो जाएगा negative, and I'm going to get a maxima. ठीक है. What about this? If I just quickly go through this, मुझे लग ये कह रहा है कि मेरे पास जो coefficient of x है, that is negative. But remember that you have to look at the coefficient of x squared, not the coefficient of x. And if you're going to expand this, you're going to get 4 minus 4x plus x squared plus 4. Okay, I applied the second identity over here, which is a minus b whole square equals to a square minus 2ab plus b square. Okay, so we're going to get 4 minus 4x plus x squared plus 4. If you look at the coefficient of x squared, what's that? It's positive 1. Okay, since it's positive 1, you're going to get a minima or a minimum turning point. Minima. Okay. That's about it for the video. And in the upcoming videos, we're going to understand how to sketch a quadratic graph by converting your quadratic equation into a completed square form. Okay. Thank you.